Here's the scenario. A service manager at a franchise car dealership is under pressure from the manufacturer to send more technicians through their bespoke training program. The service manager's had trouble replacing staff who have left recently. His boss is giving him a hard time about overtime and poor profits from the workshop. And he's got 2 apprentices who need constant attention as well. Is sending technicians to the manufacturer training actually going to make his situation any better? Yes, if the training is balanced. Let me explain. The content of the training has to be appropriate, of course, but if it's not delivered in a way that technicians can digest and then use, it's just a couple of days off work with free food. Maintaining a good balance between physical learning, mental learning, and fun keeps the technician's brain active. It sets a rhythm, but it's not predictable, so there's always that anticipation of what's next. The goal of the training is to keep the students engaged so they never get bored. If they get bored or the format becomes too predictable, their brain will switch off and the training stops working. And what's worse, if they get bored, the content they learned while they were engaged and having fun will now disappear from their minds even quicker, because boredom acts like an eraser. Any content that was only just hanging on inside their brains drops into this black hole of boredom. So how do I achieve this balance and prevent boredom? Well, first I divide what the students need to learn into 2 categories: what they must know and what they must do. Then I break that down into what's difficult to know without repetition, what's difficult to know without physically doing it, and what's difficult to do without studying it first. You can see how these topics are leading me into different teaching techniques for each one. For the must-know material, you have to start with a well-written, well-structured training manual with a clear, logically laid out table of contents. That table of contents is the key. It's got to be easy to reference, that's the whole point of it, but that's a whole different subject. Then you need a PowerPoint, and yes, it has to be pretty to be engaging. Make sure you add videos, animations, and not too much text. For the material that's difficult to remember without repetition, I use a combination of pre-course e-learning and revision quizzes during the course. I've found that the simple menu structure in Articulate Rise 360 doesn't overwhelm technicians, but still lets me add enough interactivity to make it interesting. I also use e-learning for those difficult to do without studying first topics as well, so the technicians have an idea of what they're trying to achieve in the practical activities before they arrive. For the in-class quizzes, I use an online platform called Kahoots. It's a great application that throws questions up on your big screen and the students answer with their mobile phones. Its main advantage though is that it's competitive. The students are trying to beat each other, or at least their previous score, which really increases their engagement. Once they get out in the workshop, I give them written task sheets and pair them up so they can discuss the answers as they go. The worksheets revise what we've talked about in the classroom, and to make sure they actually understand what we're talking about, I stop them after each activity and check their answers. If they've missed the point, I coach them a little bit and we move on. And then to finish it off, we'll have some Kahoot questions about the practical activities to make sure they remember. The final bit that ups the tension so the technicians know that they're here to learn and not just sample free food is the final test. A lot of them have really low confidence with tests, so I take the pressure off by using the same questions as in the Kahoots and giving them 2 chances at passing. From an academic perspective, it's probably not the best way to conduct the test, but some of the students get so wound up their minds just go blank. Even if they fail the second attempt, I've found that if I sit down with them and verbally read out the questions, they know the answers. They're just so tense and nervous about the test, they freeze up. It's just not something they're used to doing. So I have to adapt, and this test format is how I do that. So that's a bit of an overview of how I make technician training worthwhile, with balance, rhythm, variation, and a bit of tension. I've only had 2 technicians fail the final test in 16 years, so although some might say it's because I make it too easy, the number of technicians constantly asking me what's the next course I'm booked on makes me think I'm doing something right. If you want to hear more about anything I've talked about in this video, please leave a note in the comments. That's all for now. See you next time.